Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will discuss the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 21st August 2020. And the articles that we will discuss today are displayed on your screen. So let us start our discussion. Now, this article on page number 7 is related to an important social issue which is related to provision of menstrual leave for women on a monthly basis. And this article on page number 7 is in the form of a debate regarding the provision of providing menstrual leave to women on a monthly basis. So, in this discussion, we will look at key arguments in favor and against provision of menstrual leave. And this can be an important topic for us from the General Studies paper 2 point of view under the topic social issues. So let us look at all the aspects or all the debates and arguments related to the issue of menstrual leave for women. Now in this, the first issue that we should look at is the problems that are faced by women during the process of menstruation. So now talking about the problems which are faced by women during the process of menstruation, most women suffer from pain, cramps, nausea, heavy bleeding, etc. during this process of menstruation. And this pain and serious fatigue conditions which are suffered by women during this process negatively affects their quality of life. Further, various studies have indicated that premenstrual syndrome or PMS significantly reduces the occupational productivity in women. And also, doctors across the globe have acknowledged that dysmenorrhea or menstrual cramps can be as painful as heart attacks. Now, besides the physical issues which are faced by women during this process, there are other problems that are associated during this process of menstruation. And it has been said that menstruating women experience lack of private places at the workplace to change the menstrual material which is used during this process. Also, there is lack of resting areas, there are fear of staining and smelling, and also lack of hygiene in the toilets in the workplaces. Further, we note that women who work in the metropolitan cities, these cities are characterized by jam-packed work and travel spaces. And this also increases the biological or physical problems that are faced by women during this process, and which can include the pain, the feeling of nausea, etc. Now, these collective problems in the workspaces and the cities hinders the privacy and the hygiene for changing and disposing the menstrual materials. So we have seen that there are issues that are faced by women which impact the occupational productivity of the woman and also quality of life of women. And also we see that majority of the workplaces lack hygiene and private spaces for women during this process of menstruation. Further, there has been an argument that provision of menstrual leave will stand against the idea of equality which has been provided in the fundamental rights in the Article 15. And it is said that menstrual leave will be discriminatory as it will permit the women employees to avail more leave than their male counterparts. Also, it is argued that the concept of menstrual leave goes against the constitutional or the fundamental right to equality. However, arguments in favor of menstrual leave say that Article 15(3) empowers the state to make special provisions for women and children. And accordingly, this protective discrimination which has been provided in the Article 15(3) is necessary to maintain social equality as women have faced discrimination for generations. Further, Supreme Court in one of its judgment has said that the special provision for women which has been provided in the Article 15(3) means that the provisions which the state may make to improve the women's participation in all activities under the supervision and control of the state. And this can be in the form of either affirmative action or reservation. So both the Article 15(3) and the interpretation of the Supreme Court of this article argue in favor of providing menstrual leave to the women. That is, such kind of positive discrimination will not stand against the idea of equality which has been provided in the Article 15. So the constitutional argument in favor of providing menstrual leave to women is that the Article 15(3) provides for protective discrimination which is required for maintaining the social equality. And this has also been interpreted by the Supreme Court in one of its judgment. And accordingly, menstrual leave can be provided and it won't stand against the idea of equality. Further, the directive principles of state policy also provide arguments in favor of providing the menstrual leave to women. So, under the Article 42 of the Indian Constitution, which is one of the directive principles of state policy, it says that the state shall make provision for securing just and humane conditions for work and also for maternity relief. So, as we have seen, the government has already provided various protective measures to women workers. For example, the Labor Laws in the Factories Act 1948, the Maternity Benefits Act 1961, etc. And under all these acts, the various important aspects of health, leave, and working hours are provided. However, in such kind of acts, the idea of menstrual leave has not found any kind of mention. So, as the Article 42 requires the state to make provisions for just and humane conditions for work, and accordingly, this can be one of the arguments for providing maternity leave to women, which causes lot of physical strain to the women. Further, there is biological argument for providing menstrual leave to women, and it is said that maternity is a choice of women. However, menstruation is an inescapable monthly biological process that is painful. So, in this, one of the questions that has been raised is that does menstruating women need separate menstrual leaves in addition to their existing policy for sick leave? So, in this, it has been argued that it would be wrong to merge the menstrual leaves with the sickness leaves because menstruation is not an illness and it is an inevitable biological process that is painful for most of the women. And accordingly, menstrual leave should be provided to the women because menstruation is an inevitable biological process that is painful. Now, regarding the current status of menstrual leave in India, you should note that Bihar is the only state of India which has been providing 2 days of special leave every month to its female employees since 1992. And there are countries like Japan, South Korea, Indonesia, and Taiwan which provide for menstrual leave to their female employees every month. However, in India, there is no provision for menstrual leave for women. So, the arguments in favor of menstrual leave are that it is an inevitable biological process which is painful. Further, the directive principles under the Article 42 and the fundamental rights that are provided in the Article 15(3) also make conditions which are favorable for providing the menstrual leave to the women. And hence, menstrual leave, which is a critical as well as neglected subject in India, should be considered by the government. So, these are few arguments in favor of the menstrual leave issue, which is an important social issue. With this, let's take up the next article now. Now, this article on page number 6 talks about the issue of increasing the marriageable age of women in India. And presently, we note that the marriageable age of women is 18 years and that of men is 21 years. Now, in this background, we see that the Prime Minister of India had declared that population explosion was one of the India's major problems. And also, on this year's Independence Day, Prime Minister has declared that the government is considering raising the legal age of marriage for girls, which is currently 18 years. And accordingly, the government is trying to take the decision of increasing the age of marriage of women in India. Now, the argument that has been forwarded by the government for increasing the marriageable age of women is that the women should no longer suffer from the issue of malnutrition. And according to a Lancet report on malnutrition in children and mothers, and this report has said that the poverty of mother plays the greatest role in the malnutrition of the women and also her children. And this is because becoming pregnant early might lead to reduced education or wealth, and that will have adverse impact on the nutritional status of both the mother as well as the child. Also, a woman from a poor background and lower educational level might be more likely to become pregnant early. So these are few of the observations that have been provided by this Lancet report, and also is the argument of the government for increasing the marriageable age of women. However, the critics have argued that the reason for increasing the marriageable age of women is to control the population explosion in India. And it is observed that child marriage or early marriage contributes to higher total fertility, as women who are marrying early tend to have children earlier. And also, the women who are marrying early and are from poor background are likely to have more number of children over their lifetime. And accordingly, critics have argued that the government wants to increase the marriageable age of women for controlling the population explosion in India. So, in this background, let us look at the arguments in favor of increasing the marriageable age for girls and also the arguments against the increasing of marriageable age for girls. And these can be important for us from the General Studies Paper 2 point of view under the topic social issues. So, first, let us look at the arguments that are forwarded in favor of increasing the marriageable age for women or girls. Now, accordingly, the first argument is related to the issue of gender neutrality. And accordingly, the Articles 14 and the Article 21 of the Constitution guarantee the right to equality and right to live with dignity. And both these rights are violated by having different legal ages for men and women to marry. And we note that the legal age for marrying for women is 18 years in India, and for the men it is about 21 years. So, in this regard, the International Treaty Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women calls for the abolition of laws that prescribe different marriageable age for men and women. And they argue that such differentiation assumes that women have a different physical or intellectual rate of growth as compared to men. However, in this regard, the Commission has recommended that the minimum age of marriage for both the genders, that is, men and women, must be set at 18 years. Further, the Law Commission of India, in a consultation paper, has argued that having different legal standards contributes to stereotypes that wives must be younger than their husbands, and accordingly, the legal age of marriage for both men and women should be same and there should not be different legal ages. Further, the women rights activists have argued that having different legal ages perpetuates the stereotype that women are more mature than men of the same age, and therefore they can be allowed to marry sooner. So this means that the argument for having lower marriageable age for women will further perpetuate the stereotype that the women can be married earlier. The other arguments for increasing the marriageable age are that early pregnancy is normally associated with increased child mortality rates as it affects adversely the health of the mother. And accordingly, by increasing the marriageable age for girls, the early pregnancy would be avoided and it can help in reducing the child mortality rates. Further, according to a report published by the United Nations Population Fund, it has said that the child marriages were most universally banned. However, these are happening at a rate of 33,000 child marriages a day. Further, according to UNICEF, at least 1.5 million girls under the age of 18 are married in India, and nearly 16% of the adolescent girls which are aged between the 15 to 19 age bracket are currently married. So accordingly, these are also some of the arguments for increasing the marriageable age for girls in India because child marriage is highly prevalent in India. So regarding the arguments in favor of increasing the marriageable age for girls, it includes the issue of gender neutrality. It also includes the argument for improving the health condition of women and also increasing the marriageable age so that the child marriage can be reduced. Now after this, let us look at the arguments that are forwarded against increasing the marriageable age for girls. Now we'll listen to this argument that if the marriageable age of women or girls is increased, it will lead to improvement in the nutritional status of the mother. However, the authors have argued that delaying the age of pregnancy is the weakest factor in the nutritional status of the mother, and hence the increase in the marriageable age of girls is unlikely to have any impact on the nutritional status of mother, and this is because the nutritional status of women or mother depends on various other factors and not just on the age of marriage or pregnancy. Secondly, India's fertility rates have been declining to below replacement levels in many states. And this declining fertility level has also been witnessed in those states which have higher levels of child marriage. So the argument that increasing the marriageable age of women will lead to population control is also flawed according to the authors. Further, the authors argue that the change will leave vast majority of Indian women who marry before age of 21 without legal protection. And further, the authors say that if the reason for increasing the marriageable age of women is the gender equality issue, that is, there should not be differential age of marriage for both men and women, then India should follow the global norms of 18 years for both men and women for their marriageable ages. And while concluding, the authors have said that there is no direct data which suggests that increasing the age of women will automatically and substantially improve the nutritional status of women or will lead to population control. And accordingly, the government's move for increasing the marriageable age of the girls should be calculated and based on proper data analysis. So these are few arguments in favor of and against the increasing of marriageable age for girls. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 6 highlights some of the pressing concerns of the present modern world and how the technology has exceeded the regulations and control by the state actions. So in this regard, let us look at some of the concerns that have been raised by the author regarding the present modern world. And some of the points that have been highlighted by the author in this article can be very important for us from the essay point of view and can be effectively utilized for your essay examination. So let us look at some of these concerns which have been raised by the author one by one. Now, in this regard, the author has said that the world was already facing a lot of problems, and these problems have now been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. So, in this regard, the author has highlighted the Millennium Development Goals which were set by the United Nations. And they included 8 goals which were to be achieved by all the UN members by the year 2015. And these Millennium Development Goals were signed in the year 2000. However, even when we have set the Sustainable Development Goals or the SDGs, which are an improvisation over the Millennium Development Goals, we are yet to achieve these Millennium Development Goals even in the year 2020. And even now, we are unlikely to achieve these targets which were set under the Millennium Development Goals because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the digital divide that exists across the globe. Further, the author argues that there is retreat of democracies due to pursuit of raw powers by the political parties in respective countries. Now, leaders in various democracies are now fighting elections on various contentious issues which stand against the principles or the fundamentals of liberty, equality, and justice. And such attitude of the leadership across the globe in pursuit of the raw power, which is based on narrow-minded ideologies, has led to reduced institutional legitimacy due to failure in observance of rule of law. And we have seen that across the globe, authoritarian regimes are taking over in various democracies. And this has led to institutional failure or reduced institutional legitimacy. Further, such kind of pursuit of raw power by the leadership has nurtured jingoistic nationalism. And such kind of nationalism thrives on fake news and misinformation. And we note that the fake news and misinformation is one of the biggest problems that all the democracies are fighting due to increase in the social media. Further, such kind of pursuit of raw power has disturbed the balance between the demands of security and also the sanctity of civil rights. Now we note that various countries are now trying to increase their surveillance on the citizens and they have adversely impacted the rights of the citizenry. Further, leadership across the globe is showing no concern for the loss of jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it has been said that about $3.4 trillion have been lost in labor revenue due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic impact. Now, such kind of economic crisis has increased social distress, it has heightened geopolitical rivalries, and has increased the instances of racism and xenophobia. And we have seen that the geopolitical rivalries have been increasing and which are clearly visible in the trade war that is going on between China and America. And also we have seen that there is muzzling of the global institutions like the World Health Organization, etc., whose legitimacy is also at the stake because of the interference of the countries which have economic power in such kind of organizations. So in this regard, the author says that there is a need for an international cooperative endeavor to chart out policies to revive the global economy, and this will include reviving the supply chain, which has been disrupted adversely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the author cautions that such economic crisis should not be used as an opportunity by the leaderships of the nations to increase their power. And they should use this opportunity to restore economy and jobs for millions of people who have been adversely affected because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, issues have been raised regarding increased encroachment in the private life through the surveillance state. Now, due to the increase in digital technologies, the governments across the globe are increasing surveillance on its own citizens. And this is sometimes being done in order to curb the dissent against the ruling dispensation. And it is being said that digital surveillance by the state in complicity of private entities has raised questions over the infringement of rights, and these include the rights of life and personal liberty as well as right to privacy under the Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Further, the author has highlighted the issue of cybersecurity that the world faces right now. And in this regard, he suggests that there is a need to develop global norms on cybersecurity, which must be adhered as law by all the UN members. And this is important and will keep a check on over increasing cases of cyberbullying and use of technology for communal polarization by the political parties to pursue their narrow political ends. Further, such an effort will also ensure the rights and dignity of the citizens, and this will include the rights and dignity of the minorities and the oppressed classes across the globe. Further, the national boundaries are now being blurred because of increasing penetration of the digital technologies like artificial intelligence and algorithm-based cyber world. And this is leading to the diminished authority of the state in this regard. So in this regard, the author concludes by saying that all these issues highlight the importance of inspiring leadership committed to a liberal, inclusive, and truly egalitarian order. And the need for such inspiring leadership is being felt more now. So in this regard, author has highlighted some of the ethical qualities of the leadership that are required today. And these include integrity, consistency, empathy, etc. And the leadership should follow the ethical and the ideological framework of politics, and that will be more relevant and required today than ever in a fast changing world which is penetrated by technology. So these are few important points highlighted by the author in this article which can be used in your essay writing. With this, let's take up the next article now. Now this article on page number 8 talks about Namath Basai, which is a unique program of teaching the tribal children in their mother tongue. And this program has been started by the government of Kerala. And in this regard, the languages and the tribal communities which are being taught in their native languages include the Irula, the Kadamba and the Mudukka tribes. So in this regard, let us look at some facts related to these important tribes of southern India which can be asked in our preliminary examination. Now regarding the Irula tribe, they are a Dravidian ethnic group and they inhabit the Nilgiris mountain in the states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Further, the Irula tribes speak the Irula language, and this Irula language belongs to the Dravidian family of languages. The second tribe that is mentioned in this article is the Mudukka tribes, and these are the tribes that live in Attapadi Valley in the Palakkad district of Kerala. Further, the third tribe that is mentioned in this article is the Kurumba tribe, and these are scheduled tribes in the Indian states of Karnataka, Kerala and the Tamil Nadu. So these are mainly those tribes which are found in the Nilgiri mountains. Now some of these tribes have also been designated as the particularly vulnerable tribal groups or the PVTGs. So in this regard, let us look at the PVTGs that are present in the state of Kerala and the Tamil Nadu. So regarding the PVTG communities that are living in Kerala include the Chola Naikan, the Kadar, the Kutta Naikan, the Koroga and the Kurumbas. With regard to Tamil Nadu, these PVTGs include the Erular, the Kuttanaikan, the Kotas, the Kurumbas, Paniyans and the Todas. So these names can be important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. And in this regard, the Irula tribe and the Kurumba tribes are also particularly vulnerable tribal groups or PVTGs. So if you go through the previous year question papers, you will find that some questions have been asked related to important tribes that have been in news. So in this regard, you should keep track of all the tribal communities that appear in the newspapers. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now this editorial on page number 6 talks about the recent announcement of the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh regarding the reservation for jobs in the state of Madhya Pradesh to the locals only. Now in this regard, we note that the Indian Constitution's Article 16, which is a fundamental right, provides for equality of opportunity in the public employment. And in this regard, this article says that no citizen can be discriminated against or be eligible for any employment or office under the state on the grounds of only religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth or residence. However, this Article 16 provides for three exceptions to this general rule of equality of opportunity in public employment. And the first is that the Parliament can prescribe the residence as a condition for certain employment or appointment in a state government. So this means that Parliament has the authority to prescribe residence as a condition for employment and not the state governments. So accordingly, such kind of announcements by the state governments stand against the right to equality of opportunity in the public employment under the Article 16. And this issue of local jobs for locals only has been discussed in detail in the DNS of 7 July 2020, where the basic issues concerning the issue of regionalism and sons of the soil policy have been discussed in detail. So do go through these aspects in detail. With this, we conclude today's discussion, and this is the question for the day.